Behind every remarkable front stage performance is a team of ordinary people combining their talents to create extraordinary results. Join us as we go behind the curtain of selling homes and helping agents build better businesses to discuss the ideas, the principles, and the strategies that empower our Century 21 support team to maximize their potential and thrive in their unique abilities. Welcome to the Backstage. Morning, ladies.
Morning.
Good morning.
Are we introducing ourselves?
Maybe.
It's like this is not yet a every week morning show.
Yeah.
They
We're not
still
regular.
introduce themselves. They do.
Still. I'm
Yeah.
Savannah Guthrie. Welcome to the Today Show.
Trademark.
I'm Dylan DeBrain. I'm 45 years old.
Okay, they don't say that.
We're not sharing ages.
I have bum knees. You're up.
Go ahead.
I'm Abbie. I'm 30, and I have both knees working for now.
I am Anna, and I am not sharing my age.
Okay.
And I have a bad back.
I am Vic. I got bum knees too. But
Why do you have
okay.
bum knees?
Golf.
Golf?
Life.
Have you ever had surgery?
Yes.
Oh.
Genetically bad cartilage. So I just need to go back.
Genetically
I needed
bad
to go back in
cartilage.
2008.
This episode was scheduled for actually it's 45 minutes ago, but I was late because of a visit to the ortho
Yeah.
to check out my. This is
Life.
why we're
We're
talking
talking about all of our ailments.
broken
Yes.
body parts. Does somebody want to say what the heck we're doing here today?
Yeah.
Oh, she's pointing at me. Okay. We are here to talk about a really fun topic. We just had staff day last week, our annual staff day where we get together as a group. We bring everybody in from across the state. We hang out. We look back, we look forward, we set goals, we learn, we eat, we play. It's what a day. I think I
What
got
a day.
everything. But we are here to dig into the learning part that we had, just to talk more about what we discussed there and share a little bit more, I think, especially maybe some practical stories.
Do you want to get a little more specific here? What are we talking about? There?
Well, I was waiting for anybody else to jump in. Yes. I don't like the name of it. So there's a book called the Employee what's it called? Employee Engagement, the three miseries.
The truth about
I hate
employee
three miseries
engagement.
because that's bad. And then Truth About Employee Engagement sounds very
Yes.
corporate, which we're not.
Yeah.
But
Yep.
we're here to talk about how to make employees happy at work.
Yep.
Three
Yeah.
very specific ways to make employees happy at work and how we are doing that this year.
No, I
Well,
think we can do better than that.
Okay.
The three root causes of unhappiness, maybe.
Yeah. So the book title, there's an audio book and a physical book. The physical book was written, and I think it was entitled "The Three Miseries of Work."
Yeah.
And the audio book has since been renamed.
Yes, it has.
Or maybe it's the other way around.
It's
actually.
the other way
book's been
around.
renamed.
Yeah.
Now the truth about employee engagement, because
Yeah.
there's something sucky about three miseries. But,
Yes.
Yeah.
But it is, unfortunately, not unfortunately, the reality is it's framed in the negative.
Yeah.
And it really is three. I guess the way I teed this up at the staff meeting was,
Everyone needs meaningful work.
well, first of all, meaningful
yet-
work is at the
Yep.
root of human flourishing and joy. And yet most people hate their jobs. And this is the thesis of why. So,
Yeah.
so what's our goal this morning? I'm kind of curious because I'm stepping into this a little raw. You guys said you prepped a little
Yeah.
bit on the conversation.
Well, I think our goal is just to kind of recap, talk a little bit about our conversation, and then run through this, and how it relates to us and what our plans are to implement this going forward.
Because some of our agents are listening,
Yeah.
do we want to restate the thesis?
Yeah. I think that might be good to kind of like lay the foundation. Maybe we could dive into each
Should
of
I
these.
just read the whole book?
No. Well, yes, you
verbatim.
started with it. People need meaningful work, right? Like
Yeah.
this is part of our bigger conversation about the pyramid, like the personal growth
Yep.
pyramid. Discovering purpose, right? Discovering yourself, learning the human skills, and then ultimately discovering your big why, right? Like your purpose. This is towards the bottom of the pyramid. This is more in like the job skills, like we can all learn about ourselves, but we also have to come to work every single day, right?
Yeah.
And we have to like learn how to be good coworkers and good employees and good producers, right?
Well, yeah, and I think we're passionate about making this a place that is meaningful for people to work. So like meaningful work is something we talk about a lot. Like if we gotta work, we want to do something that we want to do. We want to have fun. We also talked a little bit about challenging the notion of like, well, of course you hate your job. Like you should. That's what everybody does.
That's what the world tells you.
That's what the world
Yeah.
tells you. And that's not what we are about. And I think this book has been helpful in that.
I will note that this was helpful for me as someone that, I have a lot of employees that I engage with and I help coach and train and build up. And for me, it helped me remind me that it isn't necessarily, sometimes it's easy in a manager position to be like, oh, it's just a bad employee. But actually this helps you dive into it and realize that maybe they're not a bad employee. There's just a certain one of these that they need a little more of. And that could be actually a good reflection on the company on things we can improve on. So
that's huge. I mean, and I'm not going to name names, but I can think of many examples that some of you would know of over the years where I've had, because I'm 20 something years into learning what it means to manage and lead and inspire and guide people and provide LRC. And
Well, I think all of us
early
even.
on, well, you're all, it's stepping more and more into those spaces, but early on, the amount of frustration I've had along the way with people, and it's like you want to shake them and go, why do you treat work like it's a burden? And why do you? And so that's the immature early phase. And then you start to realize as a leader, part of leading is recognizing some of those root causes of why some people are just, some people aren't the best employees. And some people have bad attitudes and they need to work somewhere else.
Yep.
But most of the time, it's actually not what's going on. Most of the time, there's some root needs inside of people that need to be fed or met or understood. And so we're on a growth journey of understanding what it means to create a work environment where, I guess the way I would put this is, to the extent that it's within our control, we've created a context where these three miseries of work, these three, I guess it's a lack of inputs, right, can create a situation where someone can't find fulfillment in the work that they're engaged in, and that's our fault.
Yes.
And I think increasingly I'm realizing how much of it is our fault. And I want to do everything we can to create, it's not perfect, it's not going to, it'll never arrive, it's always going to be a journey, but how can we control our part so that anyone that really does want to find joy in their work and discover their unique ability and grow in their capacity to give of their skills and talents, that, again, to the extent that it's possible and to the extent that it's in our control, we've given them what they need to flourish.
Yes.
And then it's on them.
Yes. Yeah.
And it actually makes it a little bit easier for us to measure. If we can say, no, we've checked the boxes of what we've provided and we're doing everything we can, it does make that that knowing what to do for them. Sometimes, we've said this before in other podcasts, that sometimes it's better to help them find work elsewhere. And it can be a winning solution that way. But this is just another way to kind of provide those tools to be able to measure that.
Well, and truthfully, we have had employees start here that has worked elsewhere, and they've asked for feedback, and they're like, "How am I doing?" I'm like, "Oh, you're doing great," you know, like, but we have no way to back that up. So we've kind of sucked at providing feedback that is measurable. So.
Okay, so you're jumping ahead. Should we describe do you want me, I don't want to steal anybody's show. Do you want me to describe, or are you planning to describe the three miseries?
Yeah. Problem, solution.
All together or one at a time?
One at a time was the thought.
Okay.
I can't say the first word.
So we have three miseries that these are, I'm trying to think of how to say this. And by the way, for a reference, this is Patrick Lencioni is the author of the book. We've read a bunch of his works. I think that he is my number one go-to for anything related to managing and leading groups of people. I think all of his stuff is a must-read, starting with the 5 dysfunctions of team. That's the one that he's famous for, but he's actually got like 10 others. And every single one of them we found to be absolutely incredibly helpful. So
and we covered their ideal team player was one of them.
We talked about ideal team player. And so, we've taken a lot from this guy. I'm really a big believer in him. So there's 3 things that tend to lead to misery in workspaces. The book is a fable, as most of his works are. And for those of you that don't like fables, then you just need to
get through it.
Get
to the back.
But it's actually, they're really good stories. Some of it's a little cheesy, but at the end, he always then steps out of the fable and explains the thesis. So the thesis here is that the first misery, I suppose, if that's what we're going to call it, is the notion of anonymity. So who's going to take a stab at what?
We want Vic to try to say it real quick.
Anonymity. That's pretty good. So anonymity is not being known, right? So like you want to, in a workplace, I don't know how to describe this well without going too far, but like as an employee, you want to be known as a person. Like you want people to know a little bit about you, your family, I think it helps to be part of something bigger. Like you don't just want to be a number that shows up. You want to be a person.
Well, and beyond that, being recognized for the role you play in the company and for others to say that to you. So I think a little bit different. We might talk on the third one we'll get to. It's an internal, how you feel, but externally, are you getting that feedback that other people know who you are, that you are a human that walks in every day, but also that your job, others know what you do for the team as well.
I think it's beyond your team too. And if you work at a really big company, obviously it's not possible, obviously, for everybody to know who you are. But I mean, I worked at a workplace where I talked to higher ups almost every day, every week, walked by them in the hallway and they had no idea what my name was. They insisted on name tags because they couldn't remember anybody's name. And it felt very dehumanizing to be like, well, you don't know who I am, but I know who you are. I talk to you every day and you can't be bothered to know my name. Like that's a very specific example, but
I feel like that's the entry point.
Yep.
Like if you don't even know my name,
and I've been here for 3 years and you still don't know who I am.
Then you certainly don't know what I am into,
and
what I care about, what my goals are, and that's it's kind of hard. I mean, I'm going to be honest, it's hard to keep up with just names right now in Century 21.
Yeah.
So then to also be able to know about what people care about. Yeah. It's one thing also, and I think he said this in the book, to know that they happen to live with their parents on the West Side.
Yeah.
It's another thing to know how their parents' health is right now and to remember to ask about that next week when. And I think the struggle with anonymity is, well, there's a lot of struggles. I mean, one is there's age gaps, here's the way I described it the other day. Like the things that I'm not allowed to ask people legally in interviews are the very things that during the normal work week, people would want you to know and understand about them. Because the things that make us who we are, the deepest realities, are our intimate relationships, our family, your health, faith, our health,
financials.
These are literally the things that you're legally not allowed to know. But you are allowed to know them once someone's employed. And I think employers in the environment that we're in are terrified to get too close. Because if we do, we might be crossing certain boundaries, and everyone's so dang sensitive. And so it's a scary environment, to be honest, as a leader, a manager, or whatever. But the truth is that once someone's working inside your organization, what makes a healthy organization is, even though the owner of the company might not be able to know every single person's interest, needs, and wants, that there's a culture of a desire to connect with each other and understand each other at various levels.
I do think, like, just to turn this internally, right? Like, I think as an organization, it does start a little bit, like you, Dylan, is who I'm pointing at. People can't see that. Have done a great job sharing a little bit, which has made the rest of us feel more safe to share, I think.
So like lead by example.
Leading by example, I think, is important in this. We've created new spaces, like quarterly check-ins, just to establish that trust and know that this is authentic. This is not just something we want to know to check a box. So I do very personally think it's helpful that you guys know that I have some stuff with a son, right? And so that has heart issues. So if I'm sitting in a meeting and I out of nowhere kind of break down, I only think it helps. It does not hurt me, right?
But it's also, you have a culture where you feel safe sharing.
Well, that's interesting because it's two ways, right? From the top down, you need to be intentional about trying to get to know people and understand who they are and then remember that. And you've got a lot of problems of your own. So it's a burden as a leader to remember. You have an obligation to know people, but it works two ways is what you're saying. There's a fear of allowing yourself to be known. Because there's a fear in the other direction of, if I'm too open, people in my past have taken advantage of me. They've abused information that I've shared with them, or they've thought less of me for certain things.
Less of me in this workplace. That's a big one.
I mean, I'm smiling because I'm thinking of early on when you hired me, Dylan. You were probably waiting for this. But I recognize it now, and I can talk about it 20 years later.
Do you know what story she's about to tell?
Well,
I could pick one of 50 where she didn't want me to know her.
Well, just in general, I don't think our proximity to one another, there wasn't a lot of time just to be ourselves. When I was showing up after work, or I'd go to school all day, and then I'd go work 4 hours after my classes for Dylan. He was selling as a full-time agent at the time. My only interaction with him was as my boss, and I was just the assistant showing up and doing the tasks. And he would always invite me over to have dinner with him and Jen. And I'm like, big red X, no. And honestly, it came a lot down to, I had a lot of insecurities. I'm like, if he knows more about me, what is that going to do? Is that going to work against me? Is he going to know some of my weaknesses? There's a lot of fear. And 20 years later, we've spent a lot of time together. And
Have you gone to dinner yet? Has that happened?
Ooh. Hey,
Still waiting.
We do coffee every couple months.
Yeah, we
together,
do.
Yeah, but dinner's different.
We should do dinner.
Small steps.
But I think one of the biggest things that happened was that you actually spending time together, proximity, but like vulnerability. You got to show that you're also human. And then I'm like, oh, wait a second. I am too. I just have had a big shield up. And so now I don't feel, I'm obviously not anonymous now, but I do remember. And even there's a few agents back in that era when they'd walk into the office and wouldn't even look me in the eye. And I remember feeling like just a number, and everybody just identified me as, oh, that's Dylan's assistant.
Yeah.
And I love to be able to look back on that now and realize how I didn't feel part of that team, because no one knew who I was except Dylan.
No one cared to know who you were.
Yes.
That's part of it.
No one made eye contact with me.
You don't have to know someone's whole life story to make them feel known.
Yeah.
And it goes two ways. I'm sure you were putting out your porcupine quill. Because you're like, don't
talk
get
to me.
near me, turd.
I was scared of people too. I was.
I don't eat dinner. Don't talk to me.
Yeah.
Well, I think the scared part's important to point out, because we always talk about this and you and I talk about this all the time. There's little Dylan, little Anna, and I think there's little fill in the blank. Like all of our team members, they're coming. We're all pretending to be together.
Yeah.
We were actually, when we go home, we're all like, my life's a mess.
Yes.
My world's a mess. And there's a fear. There's a fear that we would be found out. There's a imposter syndrome, and we're deeply tribal. And what we're all really just looking for, and you can get into the psychoanalytics of this, like we're all really just looking for is to be known.
Yep.
And we're looking for someone whose hand we can hold that we trust.
Yeah.
And so we're so tribal, but the problem is our tribes have all been broken down. Like you go to Africa, and we talk about this, like they live in Uganda, they live in tribal communities. There's tribal land. And so like, if you graduate from college and you leave, we talked about this yesterday with Jen. Yeah. You don't just leave. You come back because it's everyone in proximity to you are your uncles and aunts and grandmas, and you all live together in a community. That's been stripped from American society. We live on a street with a garage door that's automatic. We may know the names of one of our neighbors. Our family typically also lives in various locations. Yeah. And so even when we come to work, we've lost all of our tribes. What we really would love is a tribe, right? Yeah. But I think we're terrified to be known, and we're terrified to try and get to know people for all the reasons that society is broken and messed up. So anonymity is what we feel. And if we can't feel the two words that I think are important, we want to be known and we want to know that we're cared for.
Yeah.
And if you don't have that, that's misery number one. It's the beginnings of how can I enjoy or love or feel connected to the vision, the mission, the passion, the tribe, if nobody knows who I am. And it certainly feels, even if it's self-imposed, Anna. but the truth is, back then I was a young jackass with loosely fitting JCPenney suit.
We were trying to fit a role that we thought we had to play.
I was trying to play a role,
yes.
But I agree that you were at fault.
Yeah. And we'll talk about that at dinner.
She said yes. She said yes.
I heard it. No, it takes a lot of trust, right? Yeah. It takes being able to be vulnerable. That's another English word I can't say. But that's hard. That's really, really hard. And even I think I'm a very open person. I do go home sometimes and like, shoot, did I overshare? Like it is a workplace, you know? So it is a fine balance, but it goes both ways.
So on anonymity, what I'm interested in my role, but then for you guys in your roles, and as we think about this as an organization, I'm thinking about our agents listening to this as well.
Yeah.
The other two that we're going to cover have maybe more pragmatic solutions to them. Yeah. anonymity is an interesting one because you read the book and you're like, okay, I'm going to go be an amazing manager. I'm 46 and I've got this 22-year-old employee. And so I'm just going to go start asking them all these personal questions about their dating life. Yeah. And then I'm going to start saying things like, man, you slayed that. Or that's some serious risk.
Making me think of Travis in our chat the other day.
Well, that doesn't work. So there are some logistical barriers to anonymity. It has to be
natural,
authentic,
genuine,
slow and intentional.
Just
and you
small
have to
things. Ask somebody how their weekend was and then listen to the answer.
Actually
and ask a
listen.
question about it. Like,
And
do you
maybe
always travel there with your family? Like,
Yes. So the solution maybe doesn't lie in asking the questions. It's in choosing at first just to be intentional and curious.
Yes.
Well, curious
I actually think that's the right word. For
Interested.
me, I actually challenge myself.
wanting to know people.
Because I don't like to create complexity, and I'm always like, okay, every time I open up a conversation, I want to keep my peace. And so I'm like, what I've been doing recently is like, I need to create a genuine curiosity about what happened in that person's world, because all of a sudden you flip a switch, you're an active listener, and you're not just running through a list of questions that you've already pre-populated in your head. You're actually listening to what they say, and then you adjust. It's funny because I feel like I said this when we were talking about interviewing styles. It's the same when you get to know a person. You have to listen to what they say and actually be interested in it, and then ask your next question based on what they just said. Don't try to just check it off of the list.
It can be more than just small talk.
What precedes curiosity is care.
Yeah.
Like maybe what has to happen first is you have to go, because anything that I truly care about, it's like my stupid kids, right?
Yeah.
It seems like they've got plenty of time to remember all the things that they care about. It's the things that they don't care about that they somehow magically forget.
Yeah.
Is the real problem that we don't care enough about people, and when you turn that switch of care on, then you become curious in who they are and what they want. And so as a leader, I think beginning with the and the problem with care, and I've learned this doing charity work, I've learned this, care often is a function of proximity.
Yep.
Yeah.
People intrinsically actually are good at caring. Everyone cares for their own kids unless you're truly psychopathic and broken.
Right.
And so we try to get people to sponsor kids. And I'm like, and they would say, well, why don't you help people in America? I'm like, if I could take any of these kids and put them on your doorstep and you could meet them, you would immediately say, I need to sponsor them.
Yeah.
If you understood their story. The problem is there's a distance.
Yeah.
And so I don't know what this anonymity is complicated because it's a dynamic environment. It's a sociological set of people are naturally scared, but somewhere in here is a switch of choosing to care more about them as individuals, maybe developing some level of careful curiosity in order to know who they are, and then figuring out, well, how can I come alongside these people and help them achieve what they're, but that's a function of caring.
I mean, yes. You can also have people that are more naturally good at it put in a position.
Yes.
Should we talk
title.
about Vic for a little bit?
Yes.
No, but I just think it's important to recognize that this is not going to come natural for all. This is something everyone can do. But just like I can't create spreadsheets, this does come a little bit more natural to me. So it's back to unique teamwork a little bit.
Just little things. I like when Ellie is on the marketing team, she worked remote for 2 years. Yeah. And it would have been so easy to we hop on our Zoom call. I give you the list of things you're going to do. But like I made a point at our weekly check-in every week. It can be easy to be impatient with it, but I'm like the first 5 to 10 minutes, just how are you doing? How is school? Like just chit chat and those little, like it keeps the relationship alive. And she wasn't physically here in the office, but it's like, it's important for her to still feel connected and still feel like, oh, my team cares about me. Beyond just here's your task list, sign off, go do your work, you know?
Yeah.
So let's move to the next one. But my final thought, and then you guys can give final thoughts on anonymity. It seems like, just in discussing this, I've always thought about this from the vertical down, right? My role is to think of our team. How can I do a better job of caring and getting to know who they are as human beings? It seems, Anna, as we think 20 years ago, there's another vertical version. Can you become open to being known? And maybe there's a flip side. Can you choose to get to know me in that capacity as an 18, 19, 20-year-old college student work? But what I guess is vertical up, vertical down, and then I think it's horizontal. I think it's all directions, because it doesn't have to be, I want my manager to come ask me questions and get to know me. It can also be, how am I doing as a peer of people around me, knowing that they also want to be known. It's back to Dale Carnegie. If you want to be the most interesting person, then be the most interested person. And a tribe isn't vertical up or down. A tribe is a full 360 degrees
Yes.
of relationships. And so I think that there's a burden. I know my burden. I think we as a team are taking on that burden as managers and leaders. I think everyone can share that burden and decide to help us build a better tribe.
Yep.
Yeah.
Final thoughts on anonymity.
I was just thinking, I thought that was interesting how you pointed out the vertical going the other direction, because I do look back on those first few years and where even my work environment I came from, I was in high school and had a really cool job at the local hospital, but I was definitely a high school kid and thought, no way does anybody even want to know who I am or care who I am. But I could have flipped that on his head and be like, no, I should go reach out and ask questions. And that would open up spaces for people to understand who I am. And
well, imagine being a leader of a team or a company or a manager and having a new team member that comes in and shows interest in you.
Yeah.
Like, what would your perception of that person be?
Immediately.
Oh, you're something.
You got something that's different. You're going to stand out. Yeah.
I do think you have to lead by example. That's always important. But then just try to create space for it, like Abbie said. Like, take the time. It's just 5 minutes. Ask, how was your weekend? And I think it is up to everyone. Like, if you want to be known,
we want to know you.
we want to know you. So we're here, right? It goes both ways.
Yeah.
So the next misery of work is
Immeasurability.
no. I want to go to irrelevance.
Oh, okay. Yeah. Okay.
If you don't mind.
Yeah.
I see you've got them numbered the other way. Yeah, I think irrelevance. I think of it that way because I think of it in degrees of intimacy. I think immeasurability that we're going to get to it's the least personal.
Yes.
Yeah.
It can be a function
The
of
most
the job.
personal is anonymity. Do you know and care? The next is irrelevance, and this is do I see why I matter?
Why, yes.
I think, and I'll take a stab at defining it, and you guys can take over. But we all want to matter. And we don't want to matter to a mission. We don't want to matter as much to a vision or a cause or some outcome. We do want that. What we really want to matter is to people.
Yes.
Yeah.
And so we want to, because we're tribal. I think that the deepest human need, and I always think of this, I'm going to get too deep, but I always think of philosophically, you've got this baby, they're born, and the first thing they do is they recognize that when this thing that's floating around in front of them, their hand, is connected to them, and they learn, oh, wow, that's me.
Yep.
So the first thing that happens in our little tiny brains is I am.
Yeah.
And then the next thing that happens is you see other things that aren't you, and you go, okay, I'm not all that there is.
Yep.
And then there's this like moment of existential crisis where it's like, crap, I know I'm here. Does anybody else know I'm here?
Yep.
You see this when they do that invisibility prank on people,
Yes.
on kids.
Yes.
They pretend that they've made them invisible.
Yep.
And they freak out.
Yep.
And they freak out because it's like, and in the movie Ghost, same thing, freaks out because to be present, but to not be seen or known or heard, you freak out because we intrinsically want to matter. So the next thing that happens is we look at our mom, and our mom goes, and we smile and she smiles back and we go, whoa, I am seen, I am known. And so there's this innate, just huge human need for connectivity and then to be cared for and known. And that's from that, everything else is born. Yeah. And I guess where that culminates here is that as humans, we're intrinsically tribal. We want to be known by a few in our tribe, and we want to, if we're going to put work in, we want to know that work is mattering to the people that we care about and we are in proximity to.
Yep.
So irrelevance, the problem here is that in most of our jobs, we can't connect the inputs of what we do every single day to who that's actually impacting or who that actually matters to. It seems like we're just a cog in a machine, and we don't care if the machine makes it or doesn't. We don't care if the company is profitable or not, but we would care if we understood the impact of our work to our friends and colleagues inside of our workspace. And so irrelevance for me is about connecting the dots of how what you do matters to the people around you and the people that you're actually aiming to impact. How do I do?
Yeah, I think that's perfect.
Yeah.
I mean, who do I impact? Why? To who do I matter?
I think it creates an emotional buy-in.
Yeah.
Because very few people want to do stuff just to do stuff, right? Like just
That's not meaningful
to do
work.
nothing. Yeah,
No.
it doesn't feel meaningful. But when there's a face or a person, especially if it's someone you know and or care about or respect or look up to, any of those things, you feel guilt, you feel obligation, you feel responsibility to do well, right? It creates emotional buy-in rather than just I showed up, I did my job, I filed my papers, I left.
And so like a very practical example, right? I'm an ASC, I get a new listing. I have a checklist of things I have to go through. I can check it off, I put it on the MLS. That's doing a task. But that has a huge impact on an agent that just won this listing, excited to get it up.
Your agent that you
working
see every
hard,
day and
your
talk to.
Yes,
Yeah.
that you're invested in. You know, maybe they have goals and dreams, plans that they want to do. You know a little bit about their business plan. But also the impact that has on these sellers that have been looking to list their house, move up. I don't know, maybe they're having a baby, expanding their family. Like that actually is so much more than just a task.
Yeah.
And being able to step out of that makes that super meaningful, I think.
It's interesting. I'm picturing the breakdown because I love that. So my file isn't just a checklist. It matters to the agent. It matters to the seller. It matters to the TC.
Yes.
Where things break down is the lack of proximity again.
Yeah.
If you think of what I was picturing is any kind of team that works together where there's like 3 or 4 of us holding a giant box, and each of us have got a corner of the box. And if I let go of my corner, it's very, very evident what happens to the 3 of you.
Yes.
Like
Yes.
you will fall
Gonna
over,
drop.
the box falls down, it breaks, everyone's covered in blood. If I miss a thing on a checklist as an ASC or whatever, a TC, the problem is I may or may not have seen that agent in the last week to a month.
Yep.
And I certainly am not seeing them now.
Yep.
I certainly don't have any clue who the seller is. It's just an address.
Yeah, and it's a name
I don't
that
care
I
about
can
an
see,
address.
but I don't know.
But
Yeah.
There's no person behind
No.
that name. It's
No.
just a rent. And I see hundreds of these names every single month.
Yep.
And I think that's where the breakdown happens.
Yeah.
And the work to be done here, I'm still not fuzzy on, but I think that this just takes time. It's a process, just like anonymity. It's helping people in their respective roles really understand the trickle effect and maybe see the 4 corners of the box and understand how what I do impacts the moving parts. The biggest problem with American or Western work is that what we've done is we've become specialists in our respective fields. And that's what's made us capable of doing amazing things. We go to the moon, we think, because someone knew how to create that specific rocket or fuel or whatever. But it's the specialization that's also separated us from the collective mission and
Understanding.
the
Yeah.
understanding of how we fit into the whole.
Well, it's seeing the big picture. Like we've talked a lot lately about like zooming out and seeing the whole thing or beginning to end thinking, right? Like going all the way through. Like if you don't understand how your task or project or whatever goes all the way through, you're not thinking about who you're impacting. And so management, somebody needs to be able to provide that bigger picture of like, these are all the things that are affected by you executing well.
And I think we're guilty of this. Like I think if I look back over 20 years, the number of roles that we have where people for 10 years have worked in a position and they've just never come to actually understand how this impacts agents in the net.
And I don't know how you could. Like
You gotta slow down and show people.
So for me, it took, I was an ASC, right? And I'm never going to forget, I was in the Ames office and this older couple walked in and I greeted them, put them into a room to sign closing documents. And when the agent walked out, it was like, can you believe they've lived in that house for 40 years? And I just started imagining like, that was so much more than just a sale. That was so much more than me just processing a loop. Like what a like emotional moment for them, and how much it mattered that I greeted them with a smile. They had a good experience as they're letting go of their home that they've built their whole life in.
And that you didn't screw up the input 7 weeks before when you turned the listing in. It all mattered.
But I remember that moment till today. Like that was a turning point for me.
One of my favorite things is when our staff do buy or sell a house for the first time as a staff member. especially ASCs and TCs, they have been backstage playing their role in the company, and all of a sudden they are catapulted to the front stage as a client, and they get to experience all those emotions. And it's so cool because you take it back to your job after that. You're like, okay, I get it now. When I had I fat fingered an input on the listing, and the agent called me and said, hey, please fix it. But the agent doesn't tell them why. So that's the other thing. Whenever there is a little bit of a disconnect and, maybe a staff member messed up, I always counsel the agent, hey, make sure you go back to your staff member and explain what that meant, what that looked like for you. Don't blame them, but it's always good to bring them backstage so they understand what you're dealing with. I know sometimes agents want to be respectful, but I think it actually helps the staff member understand the bigger picture of what that meant when there was a mistake.
You said slowing down, and I think that's part of it. Like we just assume everybody understands what's going on. We just assume everybody, oh, you've heard this before. Like, well, maybe proximity. They're sitting in Cedar Falls and they've never heard us talk about this. And you know what I mean? So it's everybody potentially slowing down and just explaining really quickly, hey, this is why this needs to be done this way.
Yeah.
I heard that every team member has to buy a house.
Yes.
Because then they'll understand.
Then they'll get it.
Yeah.
I'm interested in how we do better at this. And I think it's challenging. And I think that's actually what I want everyone to hear.
Yeah.
We are trying really hard. I mean, the fact that we have a Vic in and of itself says we're obviously committed to trying to fix the anonymity problem.
Yeah.
We have it's weird for a company our size to have someone that's literally a walking, talking heart running around trying to get to know everyone and doing the unique ability work that we've done. I mean, super cool.
Yeah, and I have said, and I really enjoy it. Like, I'm not doing it because the company has a need and want to do better at this. Like, it is something that we're all passionate about. Like, it's authentic.
It's beautiful, and we're trying. But what I want people to hear is that trying is the key word.
Yeah.
Like I don't know. I didn't do this 10 other times, and we're just figuring out as best we can. And I think we're winning in the sense that I think we're doing better than most of our peers out there in the world at trying to create a great culture and vibe. Yeah. But I don't know how to solve the fact that it's very complex. There's a million moving parts. And as we train new people and have turnover, it's sometimes hard to understand where you fit into the machine as a whole and understand the implications of it. You can slow down, but how much can you slow down? Yeah. Because at the end of the day, we've got to process these files and we've got to find a way to pay the bills and keep the lights on. Yeah. It's a challenge. Yeah. But I think maybe on irrelevance, what we need to do is help everyone at least list the order of the people that are most immediately impacted by, and the way I want to put it is, when you do your job great, who for sure knows, but it really goes the other way. Yeah. When you screw up, who's the first person that's impacted? And I hate to be negative about it, but that's when you know. Yeah, like you don't know what's good about a car until things start breaking. And then you go, okay, hold on, that needs to be better. Yeah. So I think what I want everyone to hear is that we're trying to do a better job of this, but we might need everybody's help.
People can be curious too. Like I remember asking questions early on and we were just talking about your kid and but why? I mean, kind of like that. Well, what is this? Can you explain this? Like, I don't know what that is. Like, and even if it feels like it's outside your lane, like you can have a sense of curiosity and just ask questions about the company and processes and why things are certain.
What happens if I don't
Why do we do it this way? Why have we always done it this way?
I remember, Vic, when you were in ASC saying, I think I just want to go sit with Robin and understand what she does.
I sat in Angela's office for weeks when I first started. Like, well, what is this? Explain this to me like I'm 5. Explain this all to me. Yeah. I mean, you have to ask questions at some point, right?
Yep.
Well, Abbie.
This is a house. We buy them.
Okay. No, but I think this goes back to why we talk to our staff about empathy and communication. And so Abbie brought up the triangle to start with. We're down in one corner, but going up to the middle of emotional intelligence. Like, I think it helps our staff understand why the people are impacted that way. Maybe it helps them zoom out and think about it as more than just a task. Those are some of the tools we're giving them as well.
It's like there are 2 pieces to this. They need the picture, they need the map, but then you have to, I don't want to keep saying buy in, but like you have to then care about the map that you've been given, the picture. Yeah. Yep.
Yeah, I think that's the healthiest part of this conversation is us being vulnerable and open about the fact that we're obviously trying to do better and better at this. And then I love this sort of from the flip side of the coin, which is, hey, join us in this journey.
Yeah.
That's always the second part of this is like, here's what we could do better, but now you have to then do as well. Part of it.
But it all starts from a level of trust. Just same thing with anonymity. You have to, oh my goodness.
It's really hard. I have not even attempted to say it.
What is anonymity in your strange language?
How do you say that?
I don't know if you can say it in one word. Et men ikke er kendt. Ukent. Ukent is the word.
That's what I was
I like that word better.
Unknown.
Ukent was my first.
That was going to be.
That's better.
But what I was saying was actually both of those, ukent and irrelevance, are very come from a basis of trust, of being okay, not being fearful of being called out for it, being curious or asking more questions or reaching outside of the standard or
This is what we learned from the 5 dysfunctions.
Yes.
And it's what we spent 3 years as a team working on is building trust, not by saying trust me, but by investing in people and getting and empowering them to know who they are. And man, I tell you, that's been so valuable.
Yeah.
5 dysfunctions of team. If you haven't read that one, I think it's a no-brainer starting point. Okay, so we are on to our third item, immeasurability. So you will not find meaningful work if you are not known and cared for, anonymity or Kent. You will not find fulfillment in your workspace if you can't connect what you do to how it matters. If you just feel like a piece of the machine and you don't know how you impact people and results.
Yeah.
And then the final one, immeasurability, which isn't about being measured. I think it's about knowing what you're measuring, not as a function of the measurement, but in terms of knowing what the outcome is you're actually primarily trying to achieve.
Yeah.
I think of this as like, how do I win? Like knowing how I win,
What does
knowing
winning
how I
look
lose.
like?
Yeah.
Yes. Yep.
And I think it's hard because even one of our team members said, hey, this feels a little bit like Big Brother.
Yeah.
Because everyone in our company now has numbers that we're tracking.
Yeah.
But I think the way to flip that is to say, I actually don't want to track your numbers. I want you to be able to track your numbers.
Yes.
And I want you to know what your numbers are. And I don't mean like the physical number. I mean, what is the measurement that you're measuring?
Yeah.
Because if we know, if we agree on what numbers matter, then we know what outcomes matter. And then we can take autonomous agency in our inputs. And we can go, okay, here's my checklist. But right now, if I follow this checklist, I'm actually not going to get the right outcome. If the outcome is helping the agent get the home sold, but this checklist is actually getting in the way, then I go, wait, checklist isn't what I measured on. Helping agents sell houses is what I measured on.
Yeah.
So let me step out of the checklist, take executive action here, produce a solution, knowing that I'm trusted and can trust my team enough that if I screw up, I'm going to go, whoop, I'm so sorry. I tried something. We're going to go, hey, good effort. Let's clean up the mess.
Yep.
So
that's the results economy mindset. We had a very similar conversation of like, if you live in the black and white, it's hard to go, yeah, but these are the rules. This is what I'm supposed to do.
Yeah.
Yeah, and it's about shifting measurement because we want to talk about outcomes thinking, right?
Yes.
It's shifting the measurement from maybe how do I say this? It's not the inputs or the tasks, but the measurement is more about the outcome.
Yes.
Yes.
And the idea here of immeasurability is how do we get people to have just 1, 2, or 3 numbers that clearly help them track if they're moving in the right direction. It's probably worth retelling the story for anyone that hasn't heard it. In the fable, there's a drive-through window in this restaurant that he's bought, and he asks the guy at the drive-through window, like, what are the things that you control that you could track so you could see if you're doing a good or bad job? And the first response was, well, the amount of people that drive through the drive-through window. He said, well, that's fine. That is tracking the volume of work that you're doing, but it's not within your control. And so he says, well, what's next? He goes, well, the accuracy or the effectiveness of the orders, do we get the orders in their hands on a timely and accurate manner? He goes, well, that's good, but you only have partial control of that because the kitchen could screw up the order.
Yeah.
And then where he lands again, and you've all heard this 6 times, but but it's the interaction with the people coming to the drive-thru. And what they end up measuring is, can you get them to smile?
Miles.
And I think that's important on measurability. Some measurables are very easy. So sales measurables, units, GCI, etc., sales price.
Easy.
But when you start to get to ASC,
Yeah.
how do you measure? You can measure the number of files you did,
Yep.
but that's just out of your hands.
Yep.
Yeah.
So what can you control? And I think the smile in the drive-through is the closest comparable to what I think ASCs, as an example, should be thinking about. As I engage with the agent, it's not a question of how many files I got this week or didn't get.
Yeah.
It's about how did I help my agent, my client, and did I do it in a way that they felt empowered and uplifted and served and cared for and known? And the best way to measure that would be a proverbial smile.
Yep.
Yes.
Now, the problem is we don't have video cameras tracking everyone's smiles.
No.
So they got to do surveys. And agents, we apologize for all the surveys we're
Yes.
sending. But we need you to understand why we're doing it. We want our team to be able to measure how you feel about what we're doing for you, because that's the measurement that matters, in combination with the accuracy of the loops,
Yeah.
Yeah.
in combination with the amount of loops that we're processing. But really the ideal outcome is that you as an agent feel like we are helping you get more sales done.
Yeah.
Realized value is
Yeah.
the term that you use
That's-
a lot. And
yeah.
That's what I'm thinking of here. It's not just the volume. It's not just the stuff, right?
Yeah. I like going back to the example I gave about just maybe a mistake on inputting on a listing or something. Taking that a step further is you can mess up. I mean, we all mess up.
Yeah.
It is, how did the agent feel after you went to go take care and fix that mistake?
The correction is almost as important
the
as
process.
anything else.
So, there's a lot of ways to create a really cool experience through that. So the agent actually forgets that it was actually a mess up, and they're more like, wow, my staff member heard me, understood what I was saying, and went out of their way to make this right for me. I feel so cared for and supported that the actual mistake is no longer even an issue.
Yeah, it's worth getting into the questions that we're asking our agents right now in
Yeah.
those quarterly surveys. The first is, and this is for ASCs, TCs, but a few
Yeah.
others as well. Excuse me. The first question, Vic, help me, is proficiency.
Proficiency.
Yeah,
How do you
proficiency.
feel about your team's proficiency
Yes.
technically? Like, are
Yep.
they good at what they do?
Yep.
The second question is, how would you rate
Helpful.
their helpfulness?
Yes.
Yep.
And helpfulness is a very intentional word because
Yep.
it's not. Sometimes we have to step out of line in order to create a solution, right?
Yeah.
And helpfulness is resourcefulness.
Yeah.
Are you just following a protocol, or are you helping us get the outcome
Yep.
as your client? And
Yep.
so we appreciate again you guys taking
Yeah.
the time.
Well, and then we're also asking them about office vibes. So
Yeah. 'Cause
that's
another way to
for
measure.
ASCs,
for
yeah.
ASCs, yeah. For
Yep.
TCs, it's not. But with that, I will say it's all about how they feel. Helpfulness, all those things are also very individual, right? Like so.
Like subjective, or
Yeah,
what do you mean?
yeah. So something that I find helpful, Anna might not find
Yeah.
helpful at all.
It's very true.
Yeah. So one extra little plug for the survey, like add comments. It's helpful.
Yeah.
If there's things that we can improve on. But yeah, this was a really interesting conversation at our staff day, I feel like, because
The measurability.
the
one?
measurable, because we do quarterly check-ins now, and I know in our conversations people are asking for feedback. How can I do better? But then to actually go
Feedback
out
sounds
and
like criticism to a
It
lot of people,
does.
though.
It
Everybody
does.
wants feedback till they get it.
So they get it. Yeah. So I think on the staff end, we're just also asking for a non-scarcity mindset. No one is in trouble. We're doing this so we can learn and do
You have
even
to be open
better.
to feedback to grow,
Yeah.
like
Yeah.
professionally as a person. And it's hard, but a lot of people immediately, the walls come up, right? Because like, oh, you're just going to tell me all the things that I did wrong.
Yeah.
Which is not how it works here.
And it's just super important for our team, our staff to understand we're not trying to measure anyone's performance here. We're trying to give you the capacity to see what matters in your role
Yes.
so that you can see the measured increase or decrease in various feedback loops so that you can take action to own how you can make it even better.
Yeah.
And I don't know, I don't want to be rude or anything, but I guess I'm going to be me. Maybe that's the same thing. No, I mean, if that's not for you, then maybe we're not for you. Like we're committed to making it better and better.
There are very few places you're going to go, though, where you're not going to get feedback of some kind.
Yeah.
Like it's a mindset problem if you have an issue.
Well, I think in other companies, as an employee, you
McDonald's will give you feedback.
Your
Everywhere.
manager will
You will
sit
get
down and say,
feedback.
last week you processed this much. And we're flipping that the other way around. We want the employee to be tracking as they go, to own their number, which is what we also been saying backstage. We have a whole spreadsheet that we've created out of this particular topic in the last couple months called the numbers spreadsheet. And it is just a way for everyone to see and start tracking on their own of what those things are that they can really start to control or feel like they're aiming towards or have a target. Otherwise, if you're not tracking something or don't even know what you're doing,
you can't fix it, you can't improve it. Helps you look off the back of the boat. So marketing is weird. We've tracked for a long time, and it is amazing when you get to the end of a quarter or even the end of a month and you can look back and go, wow, like this month was really heavy here, or really strong here, or that was cool, we did. Like, it is kind of a cool way to look back and just measure your own progress
or
and get excited
this
about your
is not
goalposts.
producing results, and these numbers are terrible, and we need to make an about face. All progress starts with honesty, and you can't improve what you don't measure. And you guys have heard me say these things, ad nauseum for 20 something years.
You had a good metaphor at staff day, though. It was like just like the Ramsey stuff. Like you can't set financial goals until you know what you have. You have to have the budget, right? You have to
start with your foundation of just gathering the data and having
to start somewhere.
Well, so I think as I probably wrap up here, I think, and I'm speaking to everyone in our team, let's just start with a disclosure. We are obsessed with this year.
Yes.
We have committed as a leadership team that this year we are going to get everyone's roles clear. We are going to make sure everyone has their measurables, and we're committed to quarterly feedback loops with everyone. And own your numbers is what we're looking for. And we really want everyone's buy-in on that. So I think that's agents, hey, help us out with these surveys. It's a big deal. It's not just a survey.
No.
This is trying to help our team own their capacity to improve how they serve you. Staff, we just need your trust. We're not here to Big Brother anything. We really need, and I asked that question. I said, does this feel like Big Brother? So I appreciate somebody speaking up on that. It will feel like that a little bit, but it's not the goal. I think that's what I'm starting with. We are committed to this, and I just want I'm asking for trust because I know you all in this room have bought into what we're doing because you've seen how this has impacted your respective roles. And rolling this down into the rest of the organization is...
Well, you kind of had to pull us forward. So it's not like we immediately were like, we're on this. Like,
as we heard, I've been pulling Anna for 20 years.
Well, we just started with leadership having numbers of our own here in the last, it took 5 years.
A few fights.
And and really honing in on the numbers that matter.
She knows who she is.
But it's now that we have hashed through that and understood it and have come out on the other side, it makes it, we all understand, we've bought into that notion, and it's we're just excited to get our staff there.
Opening the house, that was hard. Like, that was a process. And I remember Dylan saying, no, but there's more, guys. There's more. We're like, no, we got it. I know how to pull my number. Like, but do you understand your number? Do you understand why your number matters with Anna's number or with accounting's number? And it takes a while. So if anyone is listening, it's like, I'm not really sure I get it yet. That's okay. It takes a while.
And
but
maybe
ask
we
the
need
questions.
to change their number. I actually sat with Robin.
They will change this year,
And we had a number for her that we were measuring, and it didn't make sense. I said, you know what? There's no rules. Let's change this. If it tells a better story for you to be able to measure what you do here, and I agreed. We did change what we measured for her.
That's the good news. Is we're a relatively small company.
We make the rules.
We can move.
We make the rules.
My favorite is when someone asks for a new title. I'm like, what do you think?
What do you want to be?
Sounds good.
Hey, I know that in a couple weeks, I think are we talking about unique ability?
Yes, we are.
Yeah, I was just thinking about the connection of this to that, and this whole journey that we're trying to go on of creating a context for people to love their work. And I think this is just my closing thought. I'm excited. I know this has been a lot of work, and I know where we're headed, and it is a lot of pulling along the way. But I really do feel like our leadership team has bought into where we're headed, and we're very clear on our vision and mission. We got such an amazing support team, and we really love our agent base right now. We just got the right people, and so the sky's the limit. But it is interesting. Like, we're here to raise the bar in the industry. We really believe buyers and sellers deserve better too. We're here to help our agents build better businesses because we're committed to the notion that it can be better.
Yes.
And this industry is amazing. And if we can help them structure these things right, we know that it can change family trees. And we've seen that happen. 3, we really believe that work can be something that's not a freaking burden.
Yeah.
And we don't know how, but slowly but surely we're working on creating an environment where people can love what they do and grow in their seats and grow in their capacity to have agency and better outcomes. Yeah. And when you put that all together, you just need, it's going to be slow. It's going to be messy. It's going to take time. It's not perfect. And we need more feedback as we go along as well. So I just love the vulnerability. I also love what we're endeavoring to accomplish. It's a worthy cause that we're trying to do. And I don't care if we get 50% of the way there or 75 or 100. I don't even know what there is. But along the way, the growth and the becoming is a beautiful thing. So I'm just proud of what we're trying to get done. Yeah. Closing thoughts from you ladies.
I think we said everything. I really don't feel like there's more.
I mean, I too will just echo. We have an amazing team, and how fun that we get to do this. Like how cool is it that we get to create a workplace where people feel known, where they know who they impact and they know like we can measure that and have open conversations. So I really appreciate the trust. I feel like I get to have a lot of cool conversations that I wouldn't have in any company.
You got such a cool job.
I do. I have the best job. I love my job.
Take us home, Anna. When are we going to dinner?
Dinner? We'll figure it out.
She'd like you to forget that she promised
after show choir tomorrow. How's that?
I think I'll be all energied out after show choir. Thanks for the conversation, ladies. Good stuff.
Thanks.